Ken, stop.
Hey, Todd. Here come our friends.
Yeah, see, Beth, what did I tell you earlier today?
Yeah. And we have participants joining us, and welcome everyone. We're going to allow just a few more seconds for individuals to get on to the webinar. Thank you again for joining this virtual college exploration fair and session here. You'll be hearing from some great presenters here. So again, we're going to let folks continue to join on. Thank you for joining us this evening, I'm sure after a long day. So we appreciate your time. And we'll get started here in just a few seconds as more individuals sign on.
Some people may just be getting their day started, right?
Or be getting your day started. All right, we'll go ahead and get started because our presenters have a lot of great information to share, and you'll be meeting them here in a second as they do their introductions and their presentation for this session. And again, we thank you for joining this session here, part of the IACAC, or the Illinois Association for College Admission Counseling Virtual College Exploration. And this is for students and for obviously the family members here, so we appreciate your time. Do know, first of all, that this is being recorded, and recordings will be made available at iacac.org. Your camera and microphone are off, so you are muted and your video is off. The panelists cannot see you or hear you, but you can ask questions, and you would just use the Q&A button to type your questions to the presenters at any time, and it should be on the Q&A. You will see that there. Depending upon what device you're upon, you should see a Q&A button. And I just want to make note that there are more sessions being offered. We're just beginning these, IACAC is, and there will be many more great sessions like this. And you can explore all of those at iacac.org. And with that, I'm going to wrap up. My name is Todd Burrell, and I am an IACAC volunteer. And my job is to moderate this, but more so for myself to now turn it over to our presenters who will introduce themselves and share some great information. So thank you again for joining us.
Thanks, Todd. All right, here comes the screen switch. Is it working? Oh, I bet it's not, because I have to be, you probably can't see it, can you? Oh, you know what's wild? Karen, can you see me? Can you see my presentation?
No.
That's because I didn't share the screen. You know, rookie mistake. Here we go. And here we are. Well, welcome everybody. I'm Ken Anselment. I'm the Vice President for Enrollment and Communication at Lawrence University up in Appleton, Wisconsin, a magical land where dreams come true. But I should probably submit my credentials. I was born in Sycamore, Illinois, so I actually come from your side of the cheese curtain, which I think makes me good with Karin and Beth. Before we get started, I do want to acknowledge there is a lot going on in the world. I don't know if you looked westward this evening, but the sunset was fantastic, but for pretty terrible reasons. I mean, there's a lot going on. We've got wildfires, we've got violence and unrest, we've got a pandemic going on. And we're entering an election season that I'm sure is going to be totally civil and fun for everybody. So with all of that as a backdrop, you're still here. And we're grateful for that, making time to get ready to have a successful college search. You have with you tonight 3 survivors of the college search process who also happen to be professional admissions people. So without any further ado, I'm going to kick it off to Beth to introduce herself and take it away, Beth.
Hi, thanks for being here tonight. I'm Beth Piskel, Associate Director of Admissions for Creighton University in Omaha, Nebraska. I am a Chicago-based representative and work with students from Illinois and Wisconsin from my base here in the suburbs. I have been with Creighton my entire career. It's been fun the last couple of years. I've been around long enough to be now working with the children of people I worked with early in my career. But kind of relevant to this evening, I'm also a parent. My daughter Sophie graduated from Glenbrook North High School in 2016 and just graduated from Creighton in May and is gainfully employed, yay. And we, for the most part, enjoyed the college process, but it's a learning process for all of us.
My name is
Take it away, Karin.
Ken, you want to get rid of your notes here, my friend, that we can all see? There you
You
go.
can see my whole screen. Super fun.
Yeah. Now we can see nothing.
That's fine. Just keep talking. I'll make it come back.
My name is Karen Smith. I am the regional manager of Midwest admission for Beloit College in Beloit, Wisconsin, right across the border from Illinois and with the Wisconsin border. Like Beth, I have worked in college admission for a long time. Beloit actually is my alma mater, and I worked there for 13 years, and then I went a few other places, most recently Northern California, and now I'm back. Like the rest of the panelists, I am a survivor. 3 times through, I have had the great joy of working with my own students, my own kids, through the college search. Ken, you want to introduce yourself a little bit more? And then, and I should say this, all graduated, all gainfully employed, DePaul University, Butler University, Drake University.
Nice. I actually have the pleasure and the privilege of having had both of my children recruited by the other 2 people on this presentation at some point. My daughter and my son, I have a first-year student and a junior in college. They decided not to go to the college where their dad works because that's just a little too close to home. So I have a golden eagle and I have a blue jay in the house. And those are the only 2, actually they're not in the house, they're off to college. So they have literally flown the nest, and now we have an empty nest, which is why I have this huge grin on my face. But Beth recruited my daughter to Creighton, and she is having a fantastic time. She's just starting week 5 out there. And Karen took a whack at trying to recruit my son to Lawrence, but he decided that he was going to stop at a college in Milwaukee between here and Chicago. It rhymes with Larquette. I won't name it here. But anyway, thanks for being here. Now, Karen, I know you usually do a nice job of kind of teeing this whole night up and letting folks know what to expect and how to make the most of their time with us. So let me kick it back to you.
Oh. So let me first say that we're not going to do a whole big PowerPointy thing.
Sorry.
We're going to offer, that's okay. No, there's not 20 slides that Ken's about to show us, not at all.
2.
We're going to talk a little bit about why you maybe have chosen to be with us tonight, what we believe to be some of the appropriate roles for parents in the college search. We're going to give you some resources to assist you and to offer some clarity. We're going to talk about lessons we've learned in going through this process. And we're going to throw in a little bit of humor if you haven't figured that out already. I mean, come on, it's 7:30 on Tuesday. The Cubs are playing, and oh, man, we recently pitched a no-hitter against the, who were they? Oh, the Brewers. Yes, Ken's favorite team. Had to throw that in there. So here's,
I called that dog to start barking over you at precisely that moment.
Exactly right. Dang it.
I think you should just stop talking.
No, I have had the great pleasure of giving this presentation in a room with lots of parents and lots of students, 3D versions of you, not behind the screen, 2D versions of you. And to talk about this topic. And one of the thing that I always start that kind of presentation with is this great exercise. And so if we were all in a room together at a high school, what I would do would be to ask all the students in the room who are probably attending the session because we believe they're looking at colleges in the process of looking at colleges. I would ask all the students in the room to please stand, which immediately embarrasses them, right? They're like, oh, they look around at each other and then, okay, they grudgingly stand up. And we celebrate them, right? We say, congratulations, look where you are. A year from now, you're probably gonna be someplace else. This is awesome, good for you, and we clap. And then I ask the students in the room to please remain standing if they're planning to take one or both of their parents or guardians to college with them. And this great thing happens. They sit down about as fast as they possibly can, right? Although one time I had a student remain standing, but that's another story. And so the parents, of course, immediately have a visual of kind of what a lot of this is all about, and why parents sometimes have a difficult time with the whole process, because indeed students are going and the parents are staying. And we have nurtured them along the way for so many years, and now they're going to just leave, right? And it's tough because there's not a clear roadmap as to what next will look like, and next will not be ours. It will be their next. And so we'll recognize right here that in and of itself is kind of an odd, bizarre, scary, stressful process. Okay, but you're gonna be fine. And it's the end of our role, our particular role at that point in our parenting career, and it's the beginning of something really new and wonderful for our students. And again, we're not going. Or a different way to look about this is parents are required to be the passenger in the car, and the students are driving this process, which students driving, that's in and of itself a scary process that I don't necessarily like even to this day, but we're required to be the passenger, and that's not a role that we're familiar with. And the magic manual of how to do that really well has yet to ever show up at my house, and I'm guessing it's not going to show up at yours, but if it does, you got a moneymaker there. And it's unfamiliar, and it's ever-changing, particularly this year, ever-changing process that we don't understand enough to feel real comfortable with. The other issue that takes place in this country in particular is there are too many choices. There are 3,000 colleges and universities in this country. That's a lot of choices. And the roadmap is unclear. And it's dictated by not so much us, a little bit, parents are gonna put some guidelines in place as we should. But again, we're not going, we're just riding along. And so we're gonna talk with you a little bit about how maybe to enjoy that ride, the passenger piece, and not run off the road. And so with that, I'm going to turn it back to Ken, who's going to talk a little bit more.
All right, thanks, Karin. So we've got some tips we want to help equip you with and some advice. But the first question we want to address is actually a question I'm going to put to all of you, and it may have actually been up on the screen, so you might even know the answer already when I had my notes up. But Karin had just mentioned there are 3,000 universities, colleges and universities in the United States. So I'd like to ask you, there are about 1,600 of those are four-year colleges and universities that are not-for-profit schools. What percentage of those colleges do you think admit more than half of their applicants? And this is the part where we can actually see if the question and answer feature is working. So go ahead and, if you want, throw your answer in. We won't judge you harshly, as far as you know. I got to find my cursor. So I'll say it again. Of the 1,600 colleges in the United States, what percentage of them do you think accept more than half of the students who apply? Nobody wants to put out the first bid, so who wants to put out the second bid? There we go. All right, Jude, good guess. I hear 70%. Do I hear 75%? All right, 50%. Let's keep scrolling on. All right. We got 70. Do we have any Prices Right fans? Are we gonna have somebody said like 1 or 5 or 10? What I love though, 63, well done. 50, 10. I like that the answers are a little higher than I normally see. Quite often when I ask this, 70, I think we're kind of coalescing around 70. The good news is you're all wrong because you haven't gone high enough. So let me do it in the form of a multiple choice instead. Is it A, 82%, B, 82%, or C, 82%? That's right, it's D, all of the above. 82%. So given how many of you are actually rating pretty high there, that's exciting. That tells me that you're actually getting good information, because quite often when I ask that question, I've done this in rooms full of 700 people and the numbers get so low, they're sad and depressing. But it's mostly because the stories we often hear of the students are the stories of the students who did everything right. They were perfect students, 4.0, got a 35, not a 36 on the ACT, student body president, captain of the basketball team, took every AP class the school offered, not satisfied with the AP offering, started teaching some of his or her own AP classes on the side, walked all the animals in the neighborhood, was beloved by animals everywhere, healer of the sick, inventor of cold fusion, and didn't get into any of the top colleges he or she applied to, which happened to be the most selective colleges in the country. I have a friend, Maria Furtado, who works for Colleges That Change Lives, who says things like, she often says, Americans love things that frighten us. We love scary movies, roller coasters, and stories about college admission. Because the fact of the matter is the stories we hear usually focus on the negative. They focus on clickbait. Perfect kid doesn't get into college, when in fact, most students are getting into most colleges. There is a freshman survey that's given out every year, administered by UCLA. And year after year, this survey shows that I think it's like 2/3 of the students indicate that they're enrolled in their first choice college. And if you include first and second choice college, the number creeps up to 90%. And so I'm saying this to all of you to give you a little bit of an aspirin before you head into this process, because it's rife with headaches, it's rife with bad information. And to let you know that this process is going to go probably a lot better than the world may lead you to believe. And it starts by you being here tonight. That was a little on the nose, I apologize. But one other thing before I kick it to Beth, I have a question for Beth. The Pew Research Foundation released a study last year, and it shows that there are 17 colleges that admit less than 10% of their applicants, but they're the ones that get about 90% of the news coverage in the country. So keep that in mind when you're reading stories about certain colleges that shall remain nameless, but those are the colleges that are the exception. They're not the rule. So, Beth, since we have a collection of parents here with us tonight, what are some good roles, appropriate roles? Because there are a lot of roles that parents want to play in the college admission process, but what are some appropriate roles?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Ken. Well, the first thing I would ask you to do is I encourage you to ask yourself what your child can learn during this process. You should realize that by stepping back and encouraging them to take charge, you're going to help them be more prepared for the things that they need to do next year. This is not your college application process, it's your child's. And your child should feel like they are running their college search. This is going to help them feel more invested in the decision. And I truly believe that if they are invested in the decision, they are going to feel more determined to be successful on the campus they choose. And determination is just so important. As I see it, your basic role as a parent in this process is to provide support and guidance. You can help them by listening. Encourage them to think about what they have enjoyed about their high school experience and what they have not enjoyed. This is what they know, and it can be a starting point for considering things they want to look for in a college. Now is a good time to have conversations with your student about their responsibilities. Who's going to keep track of application deadlines and requirements? I think it is okay and wise for parents to keep track of these dates, but your student is ultimately responsible for meeting the deadlines and should really take an active role in completing things on time. I do have a few suggestions for you to consider. If you are the homework police, it's time to stop. It's very important for students to learn to manage their own academic lives before they go to college. Allow them to start managing their own sleep and wake cycles. Make them take responsibility for getting up in the morning. It's hard, but it's really best if you don't rescue them. If they don't learn to do it now, it's going to be a lot harder for them next year. Have you taught them how to do laundry or clean a bathroom? This is one thing I did not do a good job with and absolutely regretted it. Not feeling comfortable doing laundry was very stressful for my daughter when she got to college. And her bathroom cleaning methods may not have stressed her, but they absolutely stressed me.
Beth, I really wish I had that advice. And here's why. We were FaceTiming with our daughter last night at Creighton because she was about to do her first load of laundry. Now, astute listeners noted that she just began week 5 at Creighton.
Yeah.
So I wish you had told me a year ago that we should have taught her that.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Mhm. All right. So another thing is have them start setting up appointments rather than you doing it for them. Have you ever had them set up their own haircut appointment or possibly call for a doctor's appointment? If your child is 18, they can do that and they can go on their own. If they've never done these things before they go to college, it's a lot harder on them. There are also things that you really need to avoid during this whole process. And most of this should seem really obvious, but we do see parents crossing boundaries on a pretty regular basis. Do not complete their college applications and do not write their essays. It won't do your child any favors when the admissions committee can see that your child's application does not seem authentic. You've got to realize we read incredible numbers of applications each year. We know what high school seniors sound like and what they write about. Plus, doing the work your child should do on an application is unethical, and it's just setting a bad example. I've actually had parents mention to me that they didn't understand certain questions when they were working on the application. It's just not the thing to do. Also, do not write emails pretending to be your child. I've even seen this when parents use their work email but sign it from their son or daughter. It is absolutely okay for you to email us directly. Just don't do it and pretend to be your child. If they're running into stumbling blocks with any part of the process, you need to take advantage of the resources and encouraging them to do so as well. Resources through their counseling staff at the high school, through college admissions officers and financial aid offices. You just need to remember this really is not about you, it's about your child. I believe that students whose parents try to control their college search lack the determination that kids have if they manage it on their own. And we need to work really hard to help kids feel determined when they make this next big step. Thanks.
Thanks, Beth. I do want to give folks the heads up that you don't have to wait till the end. If you have particular questions that you want to ask us, go ahead and use the Q&A feature and start firing away, because I know we've only got 23 minutes left, math. So I want to make sure that we get to your questions as well. So use the Q&A. Beth, can you take a look at that while I'm...
I am. I've got it up.
Awesome. Thank you. Cool. Karin, I have a question for you, which is, what advice can you give on how a parent or a family can manage the process rather than have the process manage them? You're on mute, Karin. La la.
You skip ahead in our presentation?
I did.
Oh, sure, fine.
I can pop. I can jump. I can jump back.
No,
It's such good stuff.
Well, yeah, but it's yes. Okay, how can we help to manage this? I will talk about this by telling you two stories that Ken and Beth now have heard 25 times. As I mentioned, I have 3 children who've gone through the college search process. All of them very different. All of them, thankfully, with different interests and different things that they thought would be good fits for them. And you know, with the first one, I was young and naive and excited. Like, oh, finally, I have a child that's going to do this, and this is my job, this is my business, and I can't wait, right? Because I'm going to have all the answers. And I was, you know, working up to being pretty excited about this until she suddenly became a recruited Division I athlete. And if you think that there is no clear roadmap for parents in the college search process, there is really no clear roadmap to the whole Division I recruiting process. And so for her and for many athletes in this country, the process that typically takes place for students leading into their senior year happens all the way back in their junior year. And so I was really caught off guard and, but excited, caught off guard, but excited. And so letters were coming in and texts and phone calls and mail. And yes, we were the favorite family on the block with the mailman. And one morning, and I'm a very early morning person, as Ken and Beth both know, I had been up for 2 hours working and drinking coffee and getting caffeinated and thinking about a zillion things. And I went into the kitchen and here's Kelsey getting ready to go to school. And I had some inane college question that I wanted to ask her, and I did. And she looked at me with this look that all parents have received from their own children at some point in their life that looked like, are you kidding me here? Really? And I was taken aback. And she said, Mom, do you have any idea that today at school, I have 2 AP classes that both have major tests? And you have the audacity at 7 o'clock in the morning to be asking me this inane question about colleges. And what you really need to understand is my daughter is 6'3" and I am 5'9". So she actually could squash me like a bug at any point that she chose to do that. And so I was taken aback. I stopped talking, and she went off to school, and I immediately called my husband, who answered the phone, thankfully. And I said, oh my goodness, I have become that mom. Like, this is all I think about. Like, what's going to be the best place for her and what's going to be good for her. And I told him what happened. And so we did a blissful thing that had been recommended to me by someone older and wiser who had gone through this process. And we implemented, which we did this for all 3 of our kids, family meetings. And family meetings, I'm here to tell you right now, are blissful things. And what we did was 1 day a week, and at our house it happened to be on Sundays. 1 day a week, we would sit down, my daughter or my son or my other daughter, my husband and I, and we would talk about colleges. And sometimes it was a 20-minute conversation. Sometimes it was a 2.5-hour conversation. No cell phones were allowed in the room. No other children were allowed in the room. Computers, yes, because sometimes we had to check some things out. But that was when we talked about colleges. And the rule was that from week to week, my husband and I could not talk to our children about colleges. They could talk to us, we could talk to each other, which we did. But from week to week, there was this break. And all of a sudden, the tension in the house decreased because we knew that when we got to family meeting time, all the lists would be taken care of. My list, my husband's list, my child's list. And so I wasn't like, oh, when am I going to have this opening to talk to them about this, right? And sometimes, really stupidly, I would try to do it at dinner. Now, I don't know about your house, but rarely do all of us get to sit down for dinner. And when we do, I get pretty jazzed up about it. Well, the clearest way to end a good vibe at a dinner is to start talking about colleges. So we learned that. So I'm a huge fan of family meetings. The other thing I learned was what was called college-free zones. And so this lesson came with kid number 2, 6'7", this kid. And we are driving to visit colleges, 10 hours in the car, 10 hours in the car, 10 hours one way in the car, we're driving. Now we're gonna see 3 colleges, but nonetheless, it's a lot of time in the car. And I'm driving and he's driving and then whatever. We get there, college number 1, we do the visit, we get in the car and I'm like, okay, we're gonna talk about it? No, he immediately falls asleep. So I'm driving to college number 2. We do college number 2. We get in the car and I'm like, all right, here we go. No, he falls asleep. College number 3. Now I'm so determined, right? So college number 3, we aren't even pulling out of the parking lot. And I'm like, okay, so you wanna talk about this now? And he's like, no. Mom, the car is a college-free zone. I know what you're thinking, Mom, and that is, we're speeding on the highway, I can't open the door and get out. we're going, we're enclosed. And so you think you've got me and can make me talk about this. And I'm not gonna talk about it because I don't want to talk about it right now. So we're gonna make this college-free zone. I, of course, was very disappointed. I put on a podcast that I was looking forward to listening to, and that was that. I think it is appropriate to have college-free zones. And the car is a college-free zone, unless your child chooses to make it not a college-free zone. Because otherwise, they're never gonna get in the car with you, right? They just won't. And then you won't be driving 10 hours to visit any colleges. You won't even be driving 20 minutes to go get ice cream. So those are my two things that I learned that I pass on because someone was wise enough to pass them on to me.
Thanks, Karin. Beth, did we get a question from somebody who raised their hand? I saw that, looks like an Alyssa raised their hand. And Alyssa, if you have the question, or if anybody else has a question, feel free to just shoot it in the Q&A and we'll be taking care of that and we can address your questions from there. So no need to raise your hand, just go right into the Q&A and fire up the question and we'll be good. Beth, you're on mute.
Sorry, I don't see a question.
No, I just saw a hand raise.
Oh,
Maybe it was just waving, hey, in which case is great. I appreciate that. But yeah, go ahead and use the Q&A and we will we'll address your questions and we won't put you on the spot, promise. Beth, I know you have, you've talked about good questions that parents and families can ask when they're working with colleges. Have you found some to be particularly helpful?
yeah.
Pass on to our parents?
I have. And the first thing I want to acknowledge right now is that this is a difficult time for students to make college visits. People have very different comfort levels with travel, and we get this. But you should know that visit options are available. Some are virtual and some are in person, and they are changing. So you should be checking in with your colleges on a regular basis to see what the current status is. Visits provide just a great opportunity to learn not just the facts and the figures, but about the culture on a college campus. Make sure you allow time beyond the tour and other meetings you are able to arrange. I see it all the time where people come, I mean, they could be flying from California and it seems like they're in such a hurry to leave as soon as their appointments are finished. This is a mistake. You want to allow time to spend, hang out in areas of campus where students will be, places like a campus coffee shop or student union. You're going to find that college students are great about talking to visitors. They remember what it was like to be in your shoes, and it provides a great opportunity for you to ask questions like, tell me what's going on the weekends, how many students remain on campus, or tell me what you do if you're struggling in a class. Ask students about using faculty office hours for individual meetings. Is that a part of the culture on the campus? If you meet with an admissions counselor individually during your visit, you can ask for examples of things like undergraduate research or internships or other experiential learning opportunities, which are so important today. You want to know maybe how many freshmen return for their sophomore year. Are students actively engaged in service to the community? You have to think about the things that are important to you and make sure you find time while you visit to talk about those things, whether it's to admissions people or students. If your student has the goal to gain admission to professional school, you want to talk about pre-professional advising, what support is in place to help your child as they go through the process of solidifying what they want to do. How do we help them find their path in life? Going with your child on visits, I think, is great, but it is absolutely fine to have the student come on their own. And remember, if they're going to be flying especially and have to do flights on their own after they start college, I think it's great to give them the opportunity to have this experience before they go. And then finally, I just want to say, don't put this off. you want to take advantages of opportunities that are existing now, because with everything that's going on, things could change in the future.
Beth, that is a great tee up for one of the questions. I see a bunch of questions have come in while we've been going here. So one of the questions, and I took myself off screen share just so I could manage the questions over here. When do you start visiting colleges? Junior year, sophomore year, senior year? Is there kind of a right answer, wrong idea?
There's
What's your
absolutely
advice?
not a right answer to when you start visiting colleges. Did you want me to answer this?
Yeah.
Yeah. You should visit colleges when you can. And listen, I have worked with so many families where a sibling came along on the visit. And then later on, when I talked to the sibling, they said, it was during that visit that they developed an interest in Creighton. And I think it's interesting because sometimes I think by the time kids get to their senior year, they are pretty stressed about this whole process. And when you're stressed about the process, it's harder to take things in. It's like you don't hear everything that's going on. Whereas that younger child, because it's not right in front of them, I think they actually absorb things in a better way. And so I think, first of all, starting early. When you take vacations, if there's a college in town, even if it's not a college you would want you think you would want to go to, I think doing a tour and listening to a spiel is a great experience for your kids. They've never been to college before. It helps them to start to learn about resources and things on campus, and they'll see things they like, things that they don't like, and all of a sudden you start developing a list. So it's never too early.
My daughter was one of those who visited Creighton with her big brother. And again, I'll stop talking about it. That's kind of weird. I'm talking about her a lot. Hey, here's another one. So for folks thinking about college planning and academic coursework, do you have a recommendation for what's a curriculum that a student should take in high school to prepare themselves for college? I know when I get this question, I usually encourage students to most colleges want to make sure you've got 4 years. Think of the big 5: English, math, language, natural sciences, and social sciences. Pay attention to the words that colleges use around the courses. Do they say that they're requiring these things, or are they recommending things? Because the answer is going to vary based on the school. But most colleges want to see 4 years of English, 3 years, if not 4 years of math. Some want to see 2 years of a language, some want to see 4 years of a language, but make sure you've got some language in there if you can actually work with a foreign language, or ASL. Some colleges will work with that as well. Science, generally biology, chemistry, and then maybe one other science on top of that. And then social sciences and history, that's like a kitchen sink. It's going to be history, a lot of things in ethnology, like anthropology and psychology and sociology and economicsology. So a lot of and the reason for those classes is because to some degree, you're going to be taking those once you get to college anyway. Even if you're in a college that's purely engineering, you're probably going to have some writing. And you're going to have some regular science, and you might even have some social science. So showing your chops in those areas is a great way to get yourself ready. I don't know, Karen, Beth, do you have any other things you would add on top of that?
I would. I think there is a tendency today for people to think that they have to take every advanced level, every AP class offered, and it's unhealthy. So here is my advice. My advice is you want to challenge yourself when you're in high school. So listen to your guidance counselors. They usually make very good advice about courses that are appropriate for you. Mm-hmm. And then you need to do soul searching about what you can manage and still have a life. Be able to do things that are fun and not be totally stressed all the time. You should be able to find balance in your life in high school. And if you're taking such a heavy course load that you can't do that, it's a mistake. There are very few colleges in the country that are expecting you to take virtually every advanced class that's offered. I mean, it's so not necessary for most of us. But with that being said, if it's appropriate for you to take some of those classes, you should, because you'll enjoy them, and they are great college prep classes. Mm-hmm. But I just see a lot of kids who really don't enjoy high school as much because they're doing too much.
It's a long journey. I mean, we all see students arriving at college and they have no gas left in the tank because they've spent it all on overloading on AP this, AP that. Push yourself where you can, but don't overdo it. Karin, you came off mute. Did you have something to add on top?
Well, there are two things that I would say. First of all, when I sit down with students and I look at their curriculum and I look at their extracurricular activities, one of the questions that I ask them is, how many hours of sleep do you get each night? And the answer I get sometimes bothers me for the next 24 hours. Mental health, physical health is a thing. And so if students are feeling the pressure to do all of these things at the expense of their physical and mental health, they're not going to be ready for college. It's as simple as that. The other thing I'll tell you is one of my very favorite interview questions is to ask a student when they get to senior year and I can see their senior curriculum, tell me why you chose the electives that you chose, right? So in Illinois, only state in the country that requires 4 years of PE, and lots of requirements. It's often not until junior and senior year that students really have some cool choices. And what they choose often tells us a lot about who they are as an individual and what they get excited about. So electives are rich and shouldn't be taken lightly.
Yeah. I know we don't have a lot of time left, but this could be a useful one. Question is, what's the best way to go about discovering a list of colleges to consider based on academic interest and major? You mean starting from what I'm interested in rather than starting with the college? Yeah, go.
Well, I mean, there's resources.
I mean, do you have some sources that you can recommend for folks to look at? What do you got?
Their high school counselor, CTCL, College Board,
CTCL.
Colleges That Change Lives. Colleges That Change Lives is a resource that has a college search in it. There's college search engines everywhere. Naviance, many high schools use this as a way for students to track what they're doing.
Did I hear you say College Board? Yeah, I mean, they actually have
Okay.
I don't like their test, but I do like their search tool. I mean, it's one of those things where you can go through an inventory of things that are important to you, and it'll give you a list of colleges that includes schools you've probably never heard of. And just because you haven't heard of it doesn't mean it's not a good fit for you. But you can put a lot of weight on an academic program, you can put very little weight on Greek life or whatever, and it'll come up with a personalized list. Beth, you look like you've got something.
I do. Well, I certainly think if you have an area of interest, you want to look at that and find a quality program in a college. But I work with a lot of kids who seem to see that as the driving point to make a college decision, and that is a mistake.
How many of them changed their minds?
Oh yeah, okay. So half the kids, or more kids than anything else, enter college undecided. But of those who enter with a major in mind, half will change. So while the major is something to take a look at, it shouldn't be the driver in your college search. This is where, before I mentioned, when you visit and you start talking to people, you get a sense about the culture and like, listen to your heart. I feel like people try to be so fact driven and Excel sheet driven. And it's like, what kind of feeling did you get from the people on that campus? You've got to let yourself do that. Don't just the Excel sheet is helpful, but you've got to go beyond that. Allow yourself to feel it.
And it's not about the window sticker on the back of the car or the sweatshirt that your parents get to wear, because the student is the one who has to live with the decision. And if you happen to be like my parents, don't do what my parents did, which is really push you towards the college that they didn't want you to go to with the hope that you would choose the one they really wanted you to go to. I chose the one that they didn't really want me to go to, and it's a weird reverse psychology. Shoot straight with folks. Give them honest answers, but remember it's their decision. I realize we're running up on a time boundary, right? We go until 8:15 or until till the Sandman gives us the hook, right? So let's see if we can get one more in here. So questions about, oh yeah, there are a ton of colleges that have gone test optional this year. Yay. Because you can't take a test. It's hard to get to an ACT or an SAT, and that's fine. There are what, now 1,500 colleges roughly that are test optional. A bunch are test blind. All three of us are test optional. Cool Kids started it first back in 2000, when was it, Karin? 2006 when Lawrence went test
Yeah,
optional?
baby. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, the question is, what are your thoughts on submitting test scores for test optional schools if my child is in the lower 25% of the school admission profile?
Well, first of all, admissions people will help counsel you
Totally.
about that. And so people feel like they can't tell us what their scores are, or they shouldn't. I oftentimes wish people would have told me in advance, because I would have said you should apply test optional.
Yeah.
But, you know, and now different schools are having different policies, like, you know, Creighton just started a policy that you can apply test optional, but then if you take a test later, like in December, even if an admissions decision has already been made, if the test bumps you to a higher scholarship level, we're going to make an adjustment for you.
Sweet.
So there are, but it's because of the times. Flexibility is, a lot of colleges are working this in. And so one test optional policy isn't the same necessarily as the next. So talk to people about it. But the important thing to understand, so many kids think we assume something bad about someone who applies test optional. That is absolutely not the truth. So it just means that you feel your high school record is more representative of your ability than a test score.
Yeah, it works. And here's the thing, there are plenty of students that have ridiculously high test scores who don't submit them. So we can't assume that the people who aren't submitting them are hiding a bad score either. So it's, here's the thing, the folks that do this line of work, the three of us and the thousands of others, we're not trying to find ways of keeping students out of our colleges. We're really trying to help provide students the opportunity to make a good decision. We got into this because we love working with students and families and helping them make good decisions and being on their side. And if there's a year when empathy and understanding is going to be on display in college admissions, it's going to be this year, because all the roadmaps have changed. All the mile markers are different. The roads don't go to the same places. So we're all figuring this out together. All of you who have seniors right now, we're all trailblazers. We're all figuring this out. But know that we're all approaching this with a sense of trying to understand folks and not trying to find ways of keeping people out. I don't like saying no to students a lot. In fact, it's kind of heartbreaking when you have to, but we don't have to do that all that often, because the students who find our colleges tend to be good matches in the first place. Karin, Beth, do you have any other final parting words of wisdom for our folks?
Have fun. You only get to do this with your kid one time, hopefully, right?
Yeah.
And so the 10 hours in the car, I wouldn't ever not do that again. So I would say, listen well enough to learn what you'll learn from your child, the driver of the car, in this process.
Yeah, it should be a fun process. It's such an exciting time. And yeah, have fun with it. Good luck to all of you.
I know we had somebody ask a question about how they can get in touch with us. So I'm going to put this back up, put our contact information back up.
We're on our websites too.
And our websites. You can always find us. Yeah, but anyway, Beth, you were going to say something. I'm sorry.
No, I think I said it.
Oh, okay.
What about you, Mr. Anselman? Your final piece of advice?
You know, it goes back to the top, which is there's a lot of bad information out there. But you can't, if you do this right, you do it once, and it can be fun. I think some of these tips about how you can manage the process instead of letting it manage you are well worth heeding, because the college search process can become this cloud that takes over your whole life. But with some simple tips of establishing college-free zones, family meeting time, so you don't have to have college creep into dinner and other unexpected places, can really make you go through this process with some sanity intact, your family relationships still intact, and really have it be a wonderful experience. Yeah, it was so much fun. We did it twice, and now we're done. It was good. I know there was one other question that was on here, since I don't see Todd hopping in here to kick us off anytime yet.
I think he fell asleep.
Let's keep going. Let's keep going. Can you see me? Can you see when I'm floating the questions around on my screen? Okay, good. What's that? Can you quickly list the couple sources you mentioned to help a child search for college? Let's go back over that again. So Colleges That Change Lives. It's an organization of about 45 to 50 schools. Truth of the matter is there are way more colleges than that change lives, but we just happen to be under the umbrella of the book called Colleges That Change Lives. But there's also the College Board. It's called Big Future, I think, if that's still the name of it. There are also search tools out there. There's an organization called CAPEX where you can go out and create a profile, and actually colleges look for students with certain interests and they can go in and find you. It's kind of like a Facebook marketplace without all the creepiness. What are some others? What are some other college search? No? Okay.
Well, just the high schools using your high school counselors. And then actually, one thing I might mention here is that because of the fact that students are not taking test scores, and colleges traditionally have relied on purchasing the names of test takers, so that we have the opportunity to send information to students, we aren't able to do that to the same extent we have been able to in the past. Yeah. So students really need to reach out to colleges and get on interest lists so that we contact them when we have virtual open houses, or we're offering interviews, or we're going to visit their high school.
Yeah. There's a question on here. What are your suggestions for a student that wants to go to college but has a lower GPA? Oh, that's a good one. Because sometimes what people think of as a lower GPA may not be, every GPA is going to mean different things to different schools. Because here's the thing, a single GPA doesn't tell the whole story. Colleges are going to look at what courses you've taken. They're going to look at your grade trends. Sometimes students have a really lousy first year of high school and have been digging themselves out of a hole and have been coming up on a good head of steam. We love to see that. Sometimes students have a kind of a sine wave of a GPA. One year it's a straight A, another year it's a C, another year it's a B. The thing is, there's people who do this line of work have pretty fantastic imaginations, and we're going to come up with some really fantastic story to make sense of your GPA. But if there's a story you need to tell us, it's not making excuses, it's helping provide context. And there's room on the application for you to give us that information. You can also talk to counselors at the colleges to give a little bit more context as well. So GPA, not all GPAs measure the same thing. You also look at the quality of the school. What sort of options are available at the school? Beth, Karen, do you have other things you would add?
I just wanted to say, when we review applications, and this is true, I believe, of all of our institutions, our main concern is, do we think, given both the level of rigor but also the level of support on our campuses, that you are going to be a graduate in 4 years? That given, if you take advantage of the resources, that you will be able to do that. And oftentimes, if we have the chance to meet with you, or through the information you provide on your application, we can develop an understanding of maybe why grades are where they are. It can help us feel more comfortable thinking, you know what, we think this kid can do it. So you'd be surprised if you could see the entire list of the students admitted and declined, because some of the stats wouldn't make sense to you, where you see kids with maybe higher grades that don't get in and kids with lower grades who do. Well, that's because of the stories attached. And there's a lot of gut feeling that goes into this about whether or not we think someone is going to work hard and take advantage of resources and ultimately be successful.
Good point. I think we have gotten through all of the questions. There is, there's one more on here, which is, do you find working with college recruiters, paid services, helpful or a hindrance? Karen, I saw your eyebrows flicker there. You've run into that with a student athlete daughter, haven't you?
It depends, right? What we know, some of the facts that we know, that the average course load of high school counselors in this country is way too high. And so some counselors don't know students the way that they wish they did and the way that families maybe believe they should. There's some great high school counselors and some not so great. There's some great independent counselors and some not so great. And so I think it's a family decision. But the other thing to remember too is whoever you hire has not spent 4 years in the building with your child the way a high school counselor has. And so I think you want to think really long and hard about whether or not that makes good sense for your particular situation. Sometimes it does. More often than not, I think it probably doesn't.
We have more questions coming in and no Todd, so we can keep going. Thanks, Kay, for your comment. I appreciate it. Here's an interesting one. What does it mean when colleges send a scholarship offer before the application?
That they aren't following the rules.
There you go, Beth. Nailed it. Now, it could be an athletic scholarship. That may be one of the only ones where you might see some sort of offer. But I don't know about I don't know. That's interesting. You don't have to name names.
You're not supposed to do that.
Nope.
A college is supposed to evaluate an application before they make a scholarship offer.
All of us belong to an organization, the National Association for College Admission Counseling, which gives us guidelines and ethics and statements of good practice. And we, like many professions, they're the right way to do things and what we believe are not necessarily in the student's best interest way of doing things.
Okay.
And you know what, now I think we do have to be done because I don't think we're the last session tonight. So
No, there's got to be another one, but I don't, let's do this. Thanks everybody for coming tonight. We're going to attempt to end the show. Thanks for your questions. Thanks, Karen and Beth, for your years of wisdom and sharing it with our families tonight.
Yeah, good luck to everyone.
Be well and do well, y'all. And let's see if this works. I'm going to end it.
Hey,
Bye-bye.